Namaste. We're glad to be back and have an opportunity today to continue our further search for hidden things, and not that they're so hidden. Certainly, that's becoming quite obvious. Not that they're so hidden, but that they've been hidden from us. It's quite amazing for those of you who've gone and found out the stuff that we shared with you about, the journey, the life journey of Yeshua. I've heard a comment several times, and it is like, wow, all of that life was lived, and yet somehow Christianity doesn't know anything about that. It's really very sad. He was a profound mystic, if I can say that. I know maybe for some of you that word is like using the word occult. We have a concept, and unfortunately the definition of those words came out of Christianity, and all of the things that they told us, and they told us so much, man. They made so many things that really weren't at all as horrible as they made them, as you're going to hell, and there's plenty of people out there still feeding that narrative. So you may encounter them, you may have some in your own family, and but there are a lot of changes going on, and there is certainly, it appears that there is a spiritual crumbling of the lies and the deception of Christianity. And I suspect if it's not, it will, and it probably already is. It's going to also happen in the other religions as well. You'll find that it's probably going on in Islam. There's a beginning to be an unraveling of the fabric of the hate. I know that we think that Christianity is a religion of love, but quite honestly, if you have spent more than 5 minutes researching the Inquisition, you will very quickly find out that Christianity was never a religion of love. It's always been a religion of oppression and control and power and all of those facets. And we're beginning to understand why they needed to do that. They needed to do that because of the inherent power that humans have to create. And so it's a long journey, and I hope if you're here, I hope that you're on that. We're beginning and embarking. We've just begun a journey. There are many, many people out there that are well exceeded and all of that stuff in this piece, this journey. But for those of you who, like myself, are just beginning to learn and understand that a lot of these lies and concepts, why they were done, and one of the pieces to find out why they were done, the first thing we have to do is recognize that they were done. And so, there's lots of people out there that are still fighting to the death to justify and quantitate Christianity. And then there's others who are recognizing that there's not any need to salvage it, that we never needed that in the first place. And so that can be if you were brought up like I was in a church, and for the first 12 years of my life, we probably spent more time in church than we spent anywhere other than our house. My mother was very religious about religion, and yet many of the things that were supposedly the principles that we lived by really didn't exist in our lives. And so that whole thing becomes then another picture all into its own. So for those of you who have begun this journey, I would like to let you know that this is a journey and it is a journey for all humanity, and it is quite important right now in the time we live in. The changes that are going on, maybe some of you haven't done much study, maybe you don't understand what's coming in front of us, and that's all fine if that's the case. I would encourage you that you do so. In fact, probably the time is more critical now than it ever has been, at least in our society's term, if I can use that. That is to say, that this society is only going to exist a certain amount of time. And it appears as if we're quite rapidly coming to the end of this society, and there are some really out of the spirit realm, there are really a lot of massive major changes that are going to go on. I know there's a whole sect of people out there who really remind me of the differences in Christianity. We use these generic names. You know, you have one sect of Christianity who basically believes that you don't have to do anything, and then you have another sect that believes you have to do everything, and then you have, I think it's 24,000 in between those two. So that's what the Kybalion was talking about when it said that they're the exact same thing, they're just on two different ends of the pendulum. If you apply that to politics, then what you get is that all politics are the same. They're just on two different ends of the pendulum. And if you look at our society now, it's really quite easy to see that. I don't think either one of them are right. I think maybe both of them have some right pieces. For me, it's been a quite drastic embark to realize that about some things that a year ago I wouldn't have ever agreed to, that there are some things that the Democrats are promoting that I absolutely do agree with. I do think that we're doing a lot of harm to this earth. I'm not saying that their answer is the answer. I'm just simply acknowledging that we are hurting Mother Earth. And for those of you who haven't heard or don't know, you know, even NASA has chimed in on this, and the outlook, if humanity does not arise, the outlook is not really good for anybody. And so, how then can we make this transformation? If you were functioning in a realm where all of your, and I don't mean to use this term, so please be light with me, in a situation where we view ourselves as all of our bad traits are acceptable, which is exactly where the material world functions. If you have flaws and failures inside of yourself, then let's don't look at them, because that's the way God made me. And it's real convenient to say that. But the answer to the question isn't, is it easy to say that? The answer to the question is it true? Is it true? And so, of course, you know all of the inherent things that brings into our life, like self-introspection and being honest with oneself and forgiving oneself and forgiving others. And, of course, it's very clear that you can't forgive others if you can't forgive yourself. So you end up in all of these different paradigms and paradoxes, and they require your mental acuity at every level, and even more so the deeper that you go. There are many people who are, and I don't have any clue about where we're at in this scale, but you know, there are people who are just beginning to be enlightened, and they're recognizing that maybe everything isn't exactly as it's been. And then there are those people who are like way deep inside of themselves, and they've been taking care of the problems with themselves, and they've been recognizing that their programming that they received from their parents, and that the programming they received from society, that maybe that stuff was a little bit less than desirable programming. And so if you haven't made it to that point, then I would encourage you to look deeper inside. There is much, friends, that we have struggled our whole lives with trying to overcome. And unfortunately, both science and spiritualism is beginning to enlighten those that want to be enlightened, those that are seeking and those that are knocking, that there are some things that have been placed inside of us by the world in which we live that we can never overcome without an intentional overcoming of it. And I would term that very simply as your programming, which kind of goes to the process of, are you really who you think you are? Or even more, are you really, in some cases, are you really who you curse yourself to? And so it's a very long journey for most people to achieve is years. And I don't know that we have years. I think that we live in a really unique time where we find this principle in the Bible. We find it in Daniel. Daniel says at the end of time. And so when you begin to look at the Bible metaphysically, then all of a sudden you begin to see all kinds of things that these seers, you know, if they were alive today, they would be people who were channeling other forces from outside of this earth. And so Daniel was one of those. And he told us at the end of time that time would be cut down and that knowledge would increase. And I would have to say at this point that really what Daniel was telling us is that there was going to be a time of enlightenment before the time of destruction. The world as we know it is very close to going away. What comes next is not going to look like. And for those who choose to go, well, I don't believe that, then that's okay. That's certainly a choice, and you're certainly free to make that choice. My desire is to present to you another choice that I personally believe is infinitely more sustainable and more beneficial to you. But as always, you're certainly free to choose whatever you choose to believe. I heard an amazing quote, and it really has begun to work for all the struggles that we have. Maybe some of you are struggling. I don't think there's a day goes by that I don't struggle, and it's different though. It's different. So we live in a world that we've believed our whole life is real, and now it's becoming quite apparent that on some levels it's not real at all. And for some of you, if you haven't done any studying of this stuff, that probably sounds really out there to tell you that you're living in the matrix and that that this is just an illusion. This is just this is just a TV show that we're watching, and what channel we choose to watch determines our future. And so that for some would be a bit heavy, although it, I believe, is absolutely true that we can switch channels. And so all of those things, though, come out of the one secret hidden place that we deal with the least, and that's our minds. So we've been looking in the Kybalion, which is Hermetic philosophy. It is a basis for every metaphysical thing that exists. Many of these principles are the principles that have been known for literally tens of thousands of years, and yet we never knew them. We were told, certainly by religious leaders, that it was evil, that it was demonic. I remember I asked a question years ago, and I said, you know, it almost seems like to me from Christianity that the demons are more powerful than the God. And I didn't realize how huge that statement was. There is much in our perception that puts power in the hands And I've found it even in the metaphysical world, people who are more concerned about all the things that are done to us than the source who's capable of preserving us. It's a sticky wicket. There's a balance in there somewhere. The hard task is to now find that balance. And so we're going to take a look in the Kybalion today. This is about perfectly in line with where we're at. We're in chapter 3, and the whole concept, thought process has to do with mental transmutation. For those of you, I'm sure you've gone and researched the word of transmutation, and you may know all that there is to know about it. But it's for sure and for certain that if we don't, then we should be fair to ourselves and do so. Quite important that we understand that we can't stay like we are and experience all source, God, all that God has for us. And so if you've been in church your whole life trying to find God, there's a good reason why you haven't found him. And I believe for those who are real, they will find him in a new way, a very potent way. But it doesn't mean that you're not going to suffer. So if you believe that everything is negative and that anything negative you should run from, my friend, good luck with that one. He doesn't desire for us to run from anything. He desires for us to learn how to deal with all things. That's the problem. We don't know how to. So we run, and we run, and we run, and we run, and we never accomplish anything. And that's not what Source wants us to be. Source doesn't run every time there's a problem in the universe. If he did, the universe would cease to exist. So, better that we should learn how to control our minds, and then we'll be suitable to deal with the things that come into our life. And so it's easy to say those words, not so easy to live. I promise you, this has been one of the greatest journeys I've ever begun, and maybe for some of you it has, but it's also been one of the most difficult journeys I've ever begun, which is, I guess, is why it's so easy for people not to do it. Because it doesn't just come easily. It requires everything of you. So chapter 3, Mental Transmutation, the Kybalion, by the 3 initiates. Mind, as well as metals and elements, may be transmuted from state to state. I shared with you in a past week that I didn't know much about it, but all that I did know about alchemy is sold to society as being simply some people over here who were like Nostradamus, who looked into the jar of water, and they were looking for the secret of how they could turn something, lead, into something that is enriching and make yourself wealthy by converting lead to gold. That's what my understanding of alchemy was. It's the search for how to switch. And in fact, that is a very carnal picture of what true alchemy is. It is a metaphor of our lives, and the metaphor of our lives is so pleased by virtue. The whole concept that has existed for way over 10,000 years of alchemy has to do with you recognizing how to change your mind. That's what every bit of it's about. And that's why they used as well as metals and elements. Yes, at one level, as we grow in alchemy of learning how to control our minds, the supernatural then begins to manifest, which makes it infinitely easier now to understand why Yahusha, a quote-unquote called ascended master, a great learned one with infinite knowledge on some levels, although it was finite, to our understanding it was infinite. That is to say, we will never probably exceed the knowledge that he had, although we may. There's certainly some things that make me believe that that also is possible. And so, but it never really, that was the hidden secret code. That was the Masonic Illuminati code that most people still today don't know. If you go ask most people, well, what's alchemy about? I don't have a clue. I heard something about somebody turning creating a goose that lays a golden egg, or turning lead into gold, or whatever. And that's about the extent of their knowledge. And of course, that's really quite tragic for all of us that we are so ignorant. And so the mind, as well as metals and elements, may be transmuted from one state to another state. Degree to degree, condition to condition, pole to pole. Vibration to vibration, true Hermetic transmutation is a mental art. Has nothing to do with anything else except your mind. As we have stated, the Hermetists were the original alchemists, astrologers, and psychologists. Hermes, having been the founder of these schools of thought, from astrology has grown modern astronomy. From alchemy has grown modern chemistry. From the mystic psychology has grown the modern psychology of the schools. But it must not be supposed that the ancients were ignorant of that which the modern schools suppose to be their exclusive and special property. So what does all that mean to us? That means that all of this knowledge that you're hearing about now, if you've lived 100 years in Christianity, you don't know anything about what I'm talking about most generally. And most of us haven't made it to 100 years of life, so it's obvious from everybody that I know and have talked to that we really haven't even begun the journey. The fact that we don't all know this so deeply ingrained in us is really a very sad thing. It just tells us that wrong programming works. If you program somebody who is a king to be a slave, they will be a slave even though they were a king. I think there's some stories out there you can find that tell that story. And so from astrology has grown modern astronomy. I was told in Christianity that those two were the opposite. I was told that astrology came out of astronomy. So they studied the stars and then they came up with all this other stuff. And that other stuff is occultic and you need to stay away from it. It's horrible, like that you're a Cancer and you have every one of the traits that a Cancer has, but that's witchcraft. And so it worked. The programming worked. You stayed away from that stuff. You don't know anything about who you even are as a person, while you glorify how much you know yourself. But it is not supposed that the ancients were ignorant of that which the modern schools suppose to be their exclusive and special property. So in other words, we're behind the ball, not in front of it where we think we are. The records engraved on the stones of ancient Egypt show conclusively that the ancients had a full comprehensive knowledge of astronomy, the very building of the pyramids showing the connection between their design and the study of astronomical science. Nor were they ignorant of chemistry, for the fragments of the ancient writings show that they were acquainted with the chemical properties of things. In fact, the ancient theories regarding physics are being slowly verified by the latest discoveries of modern science, notably those relating to the constitution of matter. Nor must it be supposed that they were ignorant of the so-called modern discoveries in psychology. On the contrary, the Egyptians were especially skilled in the science of psychology, particularly in the branches that the modern schools ignore, but which nevertheless are being uncovered under the name of psychic science. So to us, that's all new. And if you're a Christian, even more so. Some of you probably felt like you were going to sin, you were going to hell because you sat at home and the John Edwards, the psychic man, comes on, and you were so intrigued by the fact that he's talking to these spirits, or maybe you actually under the cover so nobody in your church would know, went and sat with the medium, and a medium told you things about yourself that even your own parents didn't know. And none of that, friend, is new. In fact, it's all very ancient. So, they were not ignorant of the so-called modern discoveries in psychology. On the contrary, the Egyptians were especially skilled in the science of psychology, particularly in the branches that modern schools ignore, and they have. Colleges ignore. They do not deal with spirituality. In fact, most don't even believe it exists. I've listened to many scholars talking about the Bible who do not believe anything spiritual. Under the name of psychic science, which is perplexing the psychologists of today and making them reluctantly admit that there may be something in this spirit thing after all. You know, if you hear from God, you're a schizophrenic. And I've heard many scholars say that, oh, well, if you tell me God told you, boy, I need to send you to a psychiatrist. Okay. So the truth is that beneath the material chemistry, astronomy, and psychology, that is, the psychology in its phase of brain action, the ancients possessed a knowledge of transcendental astronomy called astrology, of transcendental chemistry called alchemy, and of transcendental psychology called mystic psychology. They possessed the inner knowledge as well as the outer knowledge, the latter alone being possessed by modern science, which is why we see so much of the inner science of psychology functioning. You know, we could go back and as I said a week or so ago, I'm really starting to fall in love with Yahusha all over again. Now that I understand what it was he was doing, he really was an outcast, and since I lived most of my life feeling like that I've never really connected with anybody very deeply. And I've always wondered why that was. I see now why he struggled and went through so much. And why he was capable of doing all the things that he did. Where does that? And why does the Bible tell us that he said it to us, that you will do greater things than I have done? Well, to do greater things than he did, that must by virtue mean I possess knowledge that he didn't. And I look now at his life and I go, wow, Mike, how could that ever be possible? But I'm also starting to realize that it's possible, and as I suspect he quite knew, is that as technology came along, there were going to be things even to common people that were going to be available that there was no way possible. I mean, how much can a guy walking around in the Judean desert, how much truth can he share with how many people? Not much and very little. And so the ones that did listen, do you think that there were many that heard him that turned around and walked off and never applied any? I mean, why does he speak like he does? Why does he constantly tell them, you're not capable of dealing with me? You don't have a clue about what I'm talking about. And you never will. Why does he speak like that so often? If this is like just something simple that everybody's going to have. And I declare to you today, it's because he knows the human mind. So among the secret branches of knowledge possessed by the Hermetists was that known as the mental transmutation, which forms the subject matter of this lesson. Transmutation is a term usually employed to designate the ancient art of the transmutation of metals, particularly of the base metals, into gold. The word transmute means to change from one nature, form, or substance into another, to transform. So what's being stated to us and what is necessary of us is to recognize that we must change our minds from one form into another form completely, altogether. So for those of you who have coined the phrases for yourself that you don't like change or it's hard for you to change, I'm very sorrowful that you would speak that reality over yourself, which I'm finding out more. I see and hear and I do a lot more of destruction, and some other studies that I have going on are manifesting how much that we really do have a psychology of self-destruction programmed into us. I watch people and I watch their behavior like a hawk constantly. And I watch people, just as I'm now learning how to watch myself, that constantly find their self. If they have a choice between doing something for self-preservation and doing something for self-destruction, they will always choose self-destruction. And it can be simple little things. It's the little foxes, if you would, that spoil your vine. So you're trying to live and do all of these high, lofty things, and yet you won't deal with the smallest things that you overlooked. Not always the best path for us to choose, but we often choose it, me included. So among the secret branches of knowledge possessed by the Hermetists was that known as mental transmutation, which forms the subject matter of the lesson. Transmutation simply means to change from one thing into another. So what's being asked of you is, if you choose to become an enlightened person, there's only one way you can become this, and you cannot become this any other way. Nobody can speak spells over you. Nobody can tell you a few nice words and tell you that you're supposed to be loved and everything is wonderful and all of this. That's not transmutation. That's filling somebody else's head with an easy salvation. It is the principle that Christianity used, is to fill your head with an easy salvation. Because there is no easy salvation when it comes to you being honest about yourself. That's why you continue to do to other people all the things you've always done to them, and you're just as oblivious as you were a year, 5 years, 20 years ago. Nothing's changed. Because you keep trying to change these little peripherals, and you refuse to change the one thing that has the power to change you, which is your mind. So, if we desire then to accept the responsibility of Source, to change our minds from being a mind of bondage and a mind of desperation and a mind of fear and a mind of and a mind of and a mind of and a mind of all the things we were programmed by our parents to be from the day we were born, and society, because it's not just parents, but the load, and I've been preaching this as a transcendental statement for 25 years as well. Many parents don't like me because they're going to be found guilty for what they're doing to their children, and they have no knowledge that it was done to them as well. So it's not necessarily that you're a bad person if you're a bad parent. It's that you had bad parents that taught you how to be a bad parent, and you're teaching your kids how to be a bad parent, and they'll teach their children how to be a bad parent. I think the Bible calls it generational curses. And it actually has to do with the programming that goes on inside your mind in the first 7 years of your life. And it will stay with you. 95% of your decisions come out of that concept. And there's a lot more I would like at this point to tell you, that this isn't my great revelation, but I am a hungered and a thirsty person for truth and knowledge, and I believe that the Father sends those things to me. And so you may, if you have a desire to learn more about what I'm talking about this programming, Dr. Bruce Lipton, who you can find all over the internet, is teaching this message. He's an amazing man of Source. He understands and has the credentials to say the words that he says as a molecular biologist. all of the spiritual stuff, friend, is really as true as it is said it is. And so there are many things that are holding us. It's not you. If you have beat yourself up because you can't seem to change, I think this was one of the things that angered and frustrated me the most about Christianity, is I shared what the Bible said, and then I watched the people's lives, and after 30 years, they're no different than they were 30 years ago. Something's not working here. Something's not working. Why are you still doing the same rude, mean, unthoughtful things that you were doing 30 years ago, but now you're so enlightened? And when you take that and not look at somebody else, but you look at yourself, so please. So the word then transmute means to change from one nature, form, or substance into another. Simply put, to transform. Then what's being asked of us by source and by creation is that we accept the responsibility to choose to change ourselves from one thing to another. By doing so, guess what also happens? We change our reality from what it has been to what it should be, or what, more appropriately, what you might want it to be. The scriptures tell us, it says that whatever thing you desire can be yours. I know that you didn't understand that that's a metaphysical statement. There's some responsibilities that go along that the Bible hid from you. That is a true statement unequivocally. I 100% believe that that is doable. It's not, is it doable? That's the simple question. The hard question is, what do I have to do to accomplish that? And if I haven't just naturally been born in being able to accomplish that, then what I have must be changed. And nobody can do that for you. Only you can do that. It is the changing of our lives if we will accept the responsibility that we're not this person, this body, this action, these bad attitudes, and these way that you relate and the things that you do. If you continue to tell yourself that that is who you are, you will never find a need to change. And that's where, unfortunately, most people are, at least right now. So it isn't until you even accept the responsibility. Why did James tell us that you must first confess your faults? Do you understand metaphysically what James was saying? Until you accept what you are, there is no hope for you. You mean the Bible tells me I got to look inside of myself and my problems are mine or me? Of course you know it's true. Of course you know it's true. If your mirror that exists is your life, and that life, whatever it is an exposure of what you are inside, if you live a life and it's not what you want, it's because you're not what you want. Which then gets into the whole thing about us learning how to do what none of us know how to do, which is truly be happy and peaceful with ourselves, to truly love ourselves. And I see it even in young, small kids. I used to counsel them, and so many things I've learned in the last few months that would have totally changed everything that I would have counseled someone how to view things and all of those. But it's quite amazing to me that a child, by the time they're 5 years old, hates themselves. Something's wrong, friends. My only request to any of us is are you willing to do what it takes to change? Because change is available to us. Source has not left us out to dry, if I can use that term. Source desires more than we desire for us to accept that responsibility. But Source gives us free will, and he will allow you to continue to live the narrative you're living now and keep telling yourself how you have no need for change. The problem's not you. It's everybody else. I don't need to change. It's all their fault. Everybody, it's society's fault. It's people's fault. It's my parents' fault. It's this person's fault. But it never falls on me. And so things that I've shared in the past that have to do with the psychology, so I know some things I went through so that I could see this principle. And unless you've studied all that I've studied, you don't know what I'm talking about. But there is a reason why narcissism is one of the main sicknesses. Narcissists cannot accept responsibility for who they are. That sounds like the antithesis. That sounds like the devil inside of you. And so, if transmutation then is the key to wonderful life, wonderful love, wonderful peace, wonderful celebration, joy, and happiness. How many of you have ever read Paul's writings and you read where Paul says, "In everything rejoice, for this is the will of God concerning you"? And how many of you have ever struggled with that because you haven't ever been able to accomplish that even for a day? You might have had some stimuli that came into your life that made you feel good. You got a raise at work. You bought a new car. You did this. You did that. And as soon as that came, it disappeared like a vapor. Paul also was a metaphysicist, and that is a metaphysical statement. It's not something that you do with your mind. It's something that your mind does to you. And so according to mental transmutation, the art of changing and transforming mental states, forms, and conditions into others. So then we're being called by Source to change our mind into something else. So you may see that mental transmutation is the art of mental chemistry. How many of you went to doctors a lot and you've had a doctor tell you, well, you have a chemical imbalance in your mind? Anybody done that? A chemical imbalance in your mind is an understatement. And so if you like the term, a form of practical mystical psychology, which, as I said, that's exactly what Yeshua lived and taught. And we will see all of how he was. So by this means, far more than appears on the surface, transmutation, alchemy, or chemistry on the mental plane is important enough in its effects to be sure, and if the art stopped there, it would still be one of the most important branches of study known to man. Now here's a sad thing for us, guys. If it's the most important branch of study for us, and we're sitting here, I have people here probably who are in their 70s, 80s and don't know anything about what I'm talking about. How can that be? How can that be that you've lived 65 years in your life and you don't have a clue about any of this? And yet it's the most important thing in your life? Well, you could blame that on society. They are part of it. They've certainly hidden it from you. I mean, I'm wondering why we aren't teaching this stuff to children when they're 2 years old. Instead, it seems like we're bent on this whole self-destructive concept, and we've destroyed ourselves because we were taught by those that destroyed themselves, and we're going to continue to teach others to destroy themselves. So that's a really overwhelming statement, that the changing of our mind, and now thank the Father that we have people that are coming out and giving us practical tips about how we can undo, if not all, then a lot of the damage that was done to us. But it comes through massive intent. You find that a lot. Intent everything to do with everything. And so we must put intent. Why do I want to change this? Because I want to find out once and for all who I really am. If this body is not me, and if these thought processes that I've viewed the world through my whole life is not me, then who the heck is me? And if you're not asking yourself that question, then you either know the answer or you don't care about the answer. Because to be quite honest with you, there's not a more important question we can ask ourselves. Because when you find yourself, you're going to find that you're very similar to every other human that exists on the face of this earth. When we become true enlightenment and we transmutate and all of us actually deal with ourselves, we will find that it's infinitely easier for us to love everybody else. That's why you can't love anybody else that's why you don't love anybody. You have affection. Affection is not love. I have affection for a dog that I don't know. I could say, well, I love that dog. Well, of course I do. I love all dogs, except the ones that bite me. No, I have to love all of them, including the ones that would bite me. And that's hard for us. I know that I've talked to some, and they really struggle with this thing. How do I love those that did bad things to me? I got a few in my list. In fact, I got a whole bag been tied to my back pocket for all of my life. I've been dragging around maybe through 4 or 5 lifetimes, according to what I believe I've found out, if there is truth to it. Wow. You mean one of the greatest things that could have helped us live a wonderful, peaceful, happy, expressive life where we bless the world and we don't know anything about it and can't find it out? You can live in Christianity your whole life, dear, and you will probably never come to the understanding of what it is Yeshua is teaching. And yet it's so simple. It's so beautiful. Father loves us. God is love, and in all things. They obviously knew, or John would have never said those words. So we have the secret hidden codes, and unfortunately it's just like with the one about alchemy. Alchemy says it used by man is all about material things and has nothing to do with your mental capacity, and all of it is a metaphor for your mind. It has nothing to do with changing. If I change my mind into what my mind could be, I have found gold. Wow. It's not that the Father hates us. He doesn't hate us. He's not going to destroy us. We will destroy ourselves, which is the state in which we live on this earth. If humanity does not enlighten like is going on, and if that does not continue, this earth is going to be destroyed. You will get to see Revelation, but for a whole different reason. Why? Because all of that was not what it was appeared to be. So, by this means, far more than appears on the surface, transmutation, alchemy, and chemistry on the mental plane is important enough in its effects to be sure, and if the art stopped there, it would still be one of the most important branches of study known to man. But this is only the beginning. Let's look at why. The first of the 7 Hermetic principles is the principle of mentalism, the axiom of which the all is mind. And this may be hard for you to concept, for you to get this picture about who God is. I read it to you in Thomas, where Yeshua himself says that if I turn this rock over, why could he say that if I turn this rock over, you will find me there? Because turning that rock over, you also find you there. The problem is you have no knowledge of that. So how can I say that every human being that exists on the face of this earth is the same? And when I hurt myself, I hurt you. And when I hurt you, I hurt myself. How can that be? That is some of the truest words you will ever hear in your life, my friend. I promise you, if we get that one revelation right, this world will change. And so we have these things, and yes, we have to go through processes, and yes, we have to go through order. I have to first find out who I am, And the only way I can find out who I am is to peel through the layer of the fake facade that I've created is my ego that I call myself. And that's all it is. It's just your ego. You're not at all. You are a very kind, loving person inside. You want to give. Every one of us do. And until you see that person, I don't want to say we're doomed, although I think that at many levels, let's say we will never reach our fullness. And so, the first principle of mentalism is that the all is mind and the universe is mental. So think about that. You can use all. All is a good term. You can pray to all. It doesn't fit my vernacular as well as Source does, and Source doesn't fit my vernacular, surprisingly enough, as God does. I like to pray to God. God is my friend now. God is with me. He is me. So, the all is mind, God is mind, and the universe is totally mental. Everything is energy, everything is vibrating, nothing's real, everything is energy, it's constantly going and it's constantly ongoing. Science is proving that at a rate that is unprecedented. Which means that the underlying reality of the universe is mind, and the universe itself is mental. I don't know how many of you have heard this, that we were taught our whole lives that we retain all of this stuff in our minds. And in fact, even science is now proving that we don't. That we pose a question to the universe and the universe sends us an answer. And this has been played out in 1,000 different scenarios, and it actually is, once again, is in the Bible. Who was Samuel? Samuel was a seer. What did that mean? Samuel had brought himself mentally to a place to where he could hear Source. Who was Moses? Moses was a shaman. He was a witch doctor. He knew how to access the spirit realm. Everything is spirit. How many times in Christianity did you guys hear me say, everything is spirit? Everything. I didn't know what I was saying, but it was true. That's what I love. When Source gives you words, you don't have to understand them. If he gave them to you, they're true. And it will play out eventually. And so the universe itself is mental, that is, existing in the mind of the all. So you think about that. If you are, then you exist in the mind of Source, of God. What? Has it revolutionized anybody else's life? I find that even though I'm still struggling with all the struggles that I have, why? Because I haven't yet been able to change everything about myself. It's a long, slow process sometimes. But I do believe that I recover faster. I don't know that that's always such, that's a big deal, but to me it's a big deal. And so, everything existing in the mind of the all. We shall consider this principle in succeeding lessons, but let us see the effect of the principle if it be assumed to be true. If the universe is mental in its nature, then mental transmutation must be the art of changing the conditions of the universe. Do you understand that you have the power to change the universe? Now, you might say, oh, well, but what about the evil witch doctors? We get into that, and some of the stuff in Patanjali today, it actually speaks to some of this. Are there people that learn how to circumvent for whatever reason, and they only want to use the power? That we call that witchcraft. They're not there for the good that can come out of it. They're good for how can I use it to make myself enriching. And so is there a possibility? Of course there is. Is that something that we want to desire? I don't. You might if you do. If your only reason for wanting to change your mind is so you can learn how to function and manifest everything you want so that you can enrich yourself, then I have to tell you, you ain't doing nothing but setting yourself up for destruction. You'll be able to accomplish some of it, but inevitably it's going to destroy you. And so changing the conditions of the universe along the lines of matter, force, and mind. So you see, Therefore, that mental transmutation is really the magic of which the ancient writers had so much to say in their mystical works. And if you were a Christian, you probably don't know anything about those mystical works, and about which they gave so few practical instructions. If all is mental, then the art which enables one to transmute mental condition must render the master the controller of material conditions as well as these ordinarily called mental. So what does that mean? What that means is now you understand why Yeshua, so here's the beauty of it. You want to know how to fulfill the statement that Yeshua made? Learn how to change your mind. Yeshua did not become what he was because he was seeking to be able to heal people, or he was seeking to be able to see what others couldn't. That wasn't the focus. But if you will focus on your mind and putting your mind where it's supposed to be, those things will be a side effect. How amazing would that be, to be a side effect, that you could walk down the street and people got healed simply by the passing of your shadow? We have many examples of this going on. The only problem with those examples is we have no understanding as to what was the vehicle that caused Peter to walk down the street and they laid people simply out on the street in his shadow. Or what was the motive that caused for Paul to be able to jump on top of somebody and that person be changed? Why did Yeshua, was he capable? Friends, if you'll go do any research at all, you will find out that every ascended master, every Buddha, every Brahman that has existed in history has a lineage of supernatural works. It is. Yeshua said the truth. If you will follow my path, okay, if you will take my yoke, you will do greater things than I ever imagined. And now we live in a time where there are people awakening all over, friends all over this world at the same time. And what you're about to watch is a supernatural spectacle that's going to be so huge and so beautiful, it's really not even funny. Although I'm sure we will laugh a lot and be quite joyous as this continues. But there's going to be struggle in the middle of it. You should expect that. Yeshua didn't come and do all that he did and not experience any bad. So if you think that all of this is some utopian dream, it ain't going to happen. At least not for the present time. So if all be mental, then the art which enables one to transmute mental conditions must render the master controller of material conditions as well as those ordinary called mental. So as you learn to control your mind, you also can learn to control your environment. That's why Elijah, I'm sharing all of this Bible with you today. Elijah went up on the mountain of God, okay? The same mountain that the cave that Elijah's cave is on the same mountain that Moshe went up on, okay? And he sat and he prayed and he meditated and he contemplated, and God spoke to him in a still voice. Where was that still voice? That still voice was in his mind. As a matter of fact, none but advanced mental alchemists have been able to attain the degree of power necessary to control the grosser physical conditions, such as to control the elements of nature, the production or cessation of tempests, the production and cessation of earthquakes, and other great physical phenomena. But that such men have existed and do exist today is a matter of earnest belief to all advanced occultists of all schools. That the master exists and have these powers, the best teachers assure their students, having had experiences which justify them in such belief and statement, these masters do not make public exhibition of their powers. How many times did Yeshua do something and go, look, keep your mouth shut? I healed you. I took your leprosy away. Now go away. Okay? It really wasn't very difficult for Yeshua to do those things, and it will not be difficult for those who enlighten, truly peel the onion, truly get right with their self. It's not so much source that we need to get right with, friends. We need to get right with ourselves. We have a false picture of who we are. And as long as you stay in that false picture, you're certainly free to do so. we know that when the earth shifts and the new earth comes into play, which is going to happen very soonly, we know that there are going to be many people who choose not to accept the new earth. And this is stuff that's been going on for 20 plus years. So, in order to better work their way along the path of attainment, we mentioned their existence at this point merely to call your attention to the fact that their power is entirely mental. So everything Yahusha did mentally. Why did he say constantly, you can tell a mountain to move, and if you believe in your mind that that mountain moved, it will move? He made that a clear fact, and he said it multiple times. You have no clue how many times I've watched mountains on TV and commanded that mountain to move, and it didn't move. Why? Because I'm not yet ascended to the level that that will manifest in me. Can I get there? You bet I will. But it all is based on you. It's all you. There's no God, there's no devil that's stopping you from becoming all that you could be. There's only you stopping you. So we mentioned their existence at this point merely to call your attention to the fact that their power is entirely mental. That's an overwhelming statement. That's an overwhelming statement. Nothing can keep me from walking in the supernatural realm except my mind. Wow, that's just so beautiful. Mental transmutation under the Hermetic principle of mentalism, the universe is mental, the Kybalion. But students and Hermetists of lesser degree than masters, the initiates and the teachers, are able to freely work along the mental plane in mental transmutation. In fact, all that we call psychic phenomena, mental influence, mental science, new thought phenomena, etc., operates along the same general lines, for there is but one principle involved, no matter by what name the phenomena be called. The student and practitioner of mental transmutation works amongst the mental plane. So all of your mediums that you see that say they said to me, where is that all coming from? It's all coming out of their mind. They are maybe elevated above you. I believe it is true that we all have psychic abilities. I believe that mentally we are limiting what we could do, what we could see, what we can hear. And it's just dependent on how covered over. So it's not like this is something that you've done, although there's pieces that we've certainly done. But it's not by virtue just simply of you. There are people who are capable of accessing this more readily, and they see results. And so they tell you what things that nobody else knows about you, and you think it's some great thing. But that's really not the place I have a desire to go to. I'm interested for more than just being a medium. I want to learn, how do we walk and how do we help humanity salvage humanity's self? Because that's really what we're talking about here today. A medium might be helping somebody through a problem, and that's wonderful. There's certainly a lot of validity to that. But I'm talking about humanity. So the various treatments and affirmations, denials, etc. of the schools of mental science are but formulas, often quite imperfect and unscientific, of the Hermetic art. The majority of modern practitioners are quite ignorant compared to the ancient masters, for they lack the fundamental knowledge upon the work on which the work is based. Not only may the mental states, etc., of oneself be changed and transmuted by Hermetic methods, but also the states of others may be and are constantly transmuted in the same way, usually unconsciously, but often consciously by some understanding the laws and principles. In cases where the people affected are not informed of the principles of self-protection and more than this, as many students and practitioners of model mental science know, every material condition depending upon the minds of other people may be changed or transmuted in accordance with the earnest desire, will, and treatments of the person desiring changed conditions of life. The public are so generally informed regarding these things at present that we do not deem it necessary to mention the same at length. Our purpose at this point being merely to show the Hermetic principle in art underlying all of these various forms of practice, good and evil. For the force can be used in opposite directions according to the Hermetic principle of polarity. For if there is a good use of this mental thing, there is also, friend, a bad use of it. In this little book, we shall state the basic principles of mental transmutation, that all who read may grasp the underlying principles and thus possess the master key that will unlock the many doors of the principle of polarity. We shall now proceed to a consideration of the first of the Hermetic 7 principles, the principle of mentalism, in which is explained the truth that the all is mind and the universe is mental. In the words of the Kybalion, we ask close attention and careful study of this great principle on part of our students, for it is really the basic principle of the whole Hermetic philosophy and of the Hermetic art of mental transmutation. And so I've said all of that to say this. If you got a hold of that, my friend, you got a hold of one of the greatest keys for humanity that's ever existed. It's not if Yeshua did know it, Yeshua lived it. He proved it. He taught it. Why was he in Kashmir, India? Why was he known as the leader of the healed, the Lord of the healed? Because the people that followed him were taught Hermeticism. They were taught mental control. And when you learn to control your mind, you learn to control your world. That was his teaching. It wasn't about some Jehovah in the Bible. It was about you. What amazing. I would love to sit at Master Isa's feet for about 30 years. I can't imagine what life would look like. So I think you can quite see, even if you don't totally understand everything that was said, I think you can quite see then maybe we really haven't, maybe we're really not doing our children a favor by the education systems that we program them into. Maybe we have no conscious understanding that your bad behavior while your child is growing up for the first 7 years, you either build them up and make them strong, or you cause them to have all of the weaknesses that they will possess for the rest of their life. Maybe some of you have elevated to a point that you recognize that most of your behavioral issues aren't really yours. They're actually really the behavioral issues of those who you grew up around. And once again, I would refer you in closing back to Bruce Lipton, PhD. Spend some time. Do yourself a favor. And for those of you, I hope, if you guys have watched the stuff on Yeshua's journey and his true life picture that we put the links down there and sent to some. If you guys watched that, what did you get out of that? Did it blow you away? How could he live for 60 years after he was dead, or 50 years after he was supposedly dead on the cross? How could he live and teach? And none of that ever made its way into they've worked really hard to suppress that knowledge, friend. So what I want you to get out of that is, if you'll see the concerted effort that has been used against us to keep us from knowing what the truth is. Well, if they would do that about Yeshua, why would you believe that they would teach you that this stuff that has everything to do with you is witchcraft? If it is witchcraft for you to control your mind and to learn to control your mind, and by virtue you learn to control your psychic self, if that is witchcraft, friend, then we need more witchcraft. That's the bottom line. If I cannot accomplish what Yeshua commanded me to accomplish, which is the anticipation that I would do greater things than he did, if I can't expect for that to ever happen in the system that exists, then I want a new system. And so I hope you will pay attention, and if this resonates with you and you hear in your heart, wow, you mean all of these struggles I've had my whole life, I don't have to have? I don't have to live? I don't have to get mad about everything? And folks, it's really difficult. I ain't gonna hide, pull back, or it's difficult, because what I find is the more I look at self, the more I see self, and the more I don't like self. and it's really hard. How do you do that and yet actually grow in learning how to love self? It'll be one of the hardest parts of our task. Once we can get these two things fixed, I believe the rest will come easier. But you have to learn to truly love yourself. Because until you learn to do that, you won't love anybody else. You don't love anybody else. And I know we love to use that sloppy word about love, but true love and real love are not the same thing. So endeavor to learn how to love you. He does. Obviously, if he can love you, surely you must be able to love yourself. All right. Well, we're going to take a break. I hope I haven't bored you to tears, but if we're going to take a break here and use the bathroom and get something to drink, and we're going to play a few songs for you, and then we're going to come back. We're going to look further into how to know God. Now, I'll just share this so maybe some of you can kind of understand. Part of what I'm trying to show you, and then we're going to look, now that we finished Thomas, if my book gets here, we're going to actually begin another journey, which is in a totally different time frame, 5,000 years separated. But it gives us in the real world time, what does all of this mental stuff I'm talking about mean? How can it play out in my life? We were just enlightened to the reality that if we do the work on our mind, then these other things will be side products of it. So I'm not seeking to go find out how can I be a supernatural healer. But I know that when I find the truth, I will know how to heal. And so I hope you guys will take advantage of this and not take it lightly. Time is of every essence right now. Namaste. All right. Well, welcome. Hope you guys have been blessed. I hope that you've heard some truth in there that maybe you haven't had, or maybe you've heard some truth that you've heard, and all of a sudden you've seen synchronicities and you're hearing other people say things, and then those things pop up again. Give those things the value they deserve. Whether that be numerology, numbers that are popping up over and over again, and what I'm really starting to recognize and to learn is that what we really need to recognize is that the universe is bringing into our lives stuff all the time. But oftentimes we don't see it as that. We think of it as because we've been programmed to think materially, not spiritually. So when you begin to see that nothing really does happen by accident, that everything has a purpose, and the purpose is source's desire, then whether it be good or bad, we're supposed to find joy. Because and I know that's, some shake their heads, and I agree with you, shake your head, because it's hard to deal with. That's hard to rationalize. How am I supposed to be happy when things aren't going the way I want them to? I've not yet ascended to that. You know what I'm saying? Unhappy things still seem to have an effect, but I am going to learn how to overcome that, and then I will be at peace even when things aren't perfect. And I think that's an amazing journey to, if we didn't accomplish anything but just that. What about if you learned how to walk in peace no matter what's going on? I don't know about you, but that would make me feel like I had found heaven on earth. The turmoil and the conflict and the stress and all of that stuff that we live our lives, the drama that we've lived our lives in, man, some of us have been lived in that so deeply that we might be scared of what will life look like if I'm not full of drama. I know many people that need drama. If there isn't drama, they will make drama. And so, wow, really is mind-boggling. So this is a song y'all have heard us do under a Christian context, and I had to spend a little bit of time. I hope you'll pay attention a little bit to the words. The name of the song is Minds Are Forgotten. And because we don't know, it's not that we've forgotten them, it's that we never knew that we needed to take care of them and protect them like we do. But when we begin to learn mindfulness and then we forget about our mind, we open the doors for trouble to come against us, and I don't think any of us really want that. Mind forgotten.
Shadow within that doesn't want you to shine. We all have our struggle for control of our mind. Don't be cast down, your spirit won't die. When our minds are forgotten, life's not a happy place. Hope has vanished, our life we must embrace. Life goes blue with people we gotta cause our mind to see the truth of the Father. When our minds are forgotten, hard to see our lives. Hard to see our lives. Cause the fear and the worry, will declare their mind. Yes, hide your life. When those blue, where people you oughta cause your mind to see the truth of the Father. When our minds are forgotten, life's not a happy place. We think hope has vanished when we love that day. Talk about those blues, where people you gotta cause your mind to see the truth of the Father. within that doesn't want you to shine. Doesn't want you to shine. We all have our struggle. Gotta struggle for control of our mind. Gotta control your mind. Throw away those blues. Well, people, we gotta crush our mind to sing the truth of the Father.
Hallelujah. Let's don't let our minds be forgotten. The most wonderful power that we can ever possess in our life. Maybe, we live in a society where society is a control society. And that's because, so this goes back, it's an ongoing revelation for me, and maybe it will be for you too once you begin to see it. But all of the things that society craves for are all of the things society is programming you to crave. So everything in our society is all about control. The government is teaching you by the way that they strong arm you and control you. They are teaching you also to become a control freak. And we've been watching this go on. It's just crazy how much it is now. Everybody wants to feel like they're in control of everything, and unfortunately what that actually says metaphysically is the truth is you're not in control of anything. We can only be in control of something when we no longer let it control us. And so I know that once again, those are sometimes kind of deep concepts for some people, but it is true nonetheless, and it is certainly a blessing if we begin to recognize that. Little by little, slowly but surely, we will begin to get these revelations, and we'll begin to fix things about ourselves. And as we do, our mirror will begin to change. And so when your mirror changes, then your world changes. And so I'm awaiting the other dimensions, to be quite honest with you. I can't imagine what life could really be like if I'd have known all of this my whole life. And so if you guys are wanting more than just what you've been living, then we're on a journey to somewhere, not just a road to nowhere. So the next song that we're going to do for you is a song that we've done by one of our most beloved, Stevie Ray Vaughan, for I guess the whole time, and we love him and his music, and he also was a metaphysical person, and I'm very thankful that he was given to the earth for us to experience. This song is a rewrite of a song, and it's called No More Stranded. Don't be stranded. We are, but we do not have to remain where we're at. No more stranded. stranded. We've been stranded in our lives since we've been. What an amazing concept. I don't know about you guys, but this stuff just really blows me away. I just seem to be able to find a little bit more peace. The failures are really the greatest gifts that Creator Source gives to us. I don't like them any more probably than you do, but I know that I need them. If that's what it helps to promote me to be able to cement these principles inside of me, and of course it's a long, slow process. It's like building a house, you know. Sometimes it's easier, friends, just to bulldoze the house and start all over again. And that's kind of, it seems like, where we are. We're having to bulldoze the house down and start all over again. Okay, well now what was this about? Okay, so now I need to go reprogram my mind from when I was 1 to 7 years old. That is, I don't deny that it is true. I believe it is unequivocally true. I've seen it and I've done it. I wish I could go back now, right now, this very second, and go back with my children and raise them all over again. Everything about their life would be drastically different. I promise you that. I'm willing to accept responsibility for my failure due to my ignorance, but I don't have any desire to let somebody else that doesn't know that learn that so that maybe they can improve their life as well. It's not about us. This is all going to be over with in a sense soon enough, and the heaven that's coming, I would like to experience a little bit of heaven on earth. There is a higher frequency heaven, if you want to call it that, that we are going to ascend to, but I'd kind of like to experience a little bit of that while I'm down here and not live in total chaos constantly. So the next song we're going to do for you talks about maybe pieces of that. Because everything about, if God is love and there is no darkness in him and everything that he does is love and he loves us unconditionally, how many of you can really grab a hold? How many of you really know that experientially inside of you? You never question anymore. You totally, absolutely understand unequivocally that God loves you no matter what you are or what you do. I don't think any of us probably honestly would raise our hands to that. But I do want you to know that God loves you unconditionally. And as you grow and as you learn, I believe our minds will be open and there will be a day when we are at full peace with our Creator. He's not our enemy. If he wanted to destroy us, do you not think that he could have destroyed the whole universe? And yet he doesn't. He continues to grow and he continues to send truth to us. And so let's just take advantage of the fact that he does, even if we can't understand it, and grow and walk into that. And if we do that, then we also will not be given up on love.
called on the Father up above. You know he told us oh so long ago. What about the fight, cheating and lying? What about the price that will surely be paid? The Father said his words will never change. Ain't gonna give up on the Father. I ain't gonna give up on the Father, no matter what you say or do. I ain't gonna give up on the Father, no matter what you do or say. The Father said his word sets us free.
All right. Well, we can't any of us afford to give up on his love that he has for us. He loves us way too much for us to let that happen. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
All right. Well, we're blessed, and I hope you guys are too. He desires, really. I would above all things that you're blessed. That's such a that takes on a totally new connotation right now. What if we really had the mind of our source, and we really realized how infinitely profound that he really does love us? And I know that we probably will never be able to until we are in his presence, till we are no longer in this physical body. But nonetheless, we can begin to imagine what might it be like to truly experience and know unconditional love. That, for most people, is such a foreign concept. So we're looking at today how to know God. I think that's a very appropriate. If Christianity did not teach us how to know him, then it's up to us to take the responsibility to find out how do we know him. And then, of course, we have to use common sense and reasoning that we can only know him as a human can know him, and since we're still human at this point, we have to deal with these things we call bodies. Once we're no longer this, we will be light, and we will function at a totally different frequency and all kinds of things. But what we're doing is peeling back the layers that hide our light, and little by little we're going to learn about ourselves. One thing that I've learned about Source is that Source knows how much we can deal with. And how many times did you hear a Christian preacher, or maybe you've been one of them Christian people who, like to affirm people by scriptures, and you said, well, remember, brother or sister, God won't give you more than you can handle. That's as true a statement as has ever been made. Might not exactly mean exactly. So what does that say? That you haven't ever had this come into your life before? Because to be quite honest with you, you weren't capable of dealing with it. I would say that's probably a lot closer to truth than we maybe even have an understanding. We weren't capable of dealing with it. It was all we were dealing with trying to find out who Jesus was. And so it's wonderful because it just proves his enduring love and his longevity and his consistency and his perseverance in our lives. And if we'll choose to have those traits, then that's kind of like a proof that we are of him. And many people don't. Many people go a little ways and then they quit. They quit meditating, or they quit whatever, and it really is going to require, to accomplish anything in this walk isn't just a 5-minute deal. It takes 7 years to program a child, and you're not going to unprogram your child in 7 minutes. No matter how bad the video told you could. So we kind of have to use good sense and realisticness about these things. Are going to be years, friends. We're going to be going years, and little by little we'll walk into, as Source gives us understanding, as Source gives us wisdom, we'll get pieces. We'll have a lot of aha moments. Maybe some of you have already had some aha moments. I've had lots of them, more probably in the last 6 months than in the last 6 years. And so if we listen and trust and see the true spirit, then we in fact will be blessed. There's no ifs. You will be blessed. Your life will change. You will find some peace and happiness that you haven't had maybe your whole life. Many people, it is their whole life. So how to know God? Yoga and its aim. Many of you probably never, coming from a Christian background, had a concept that yoga was part of, to teach you. The purpose of yoga was to teach you how to know God. That you got to admit, if you're a Christian, that's a foreign statement. You would say, oh, well, I have to know Jesus to know God. And so there's many mental blocks that we have to overcome, hurdles we have to jump. And so if you have used the PDF download, it does not apparently have the specific aphorisms. I have the book and it does. So if you'll just read where you can, excuse me, if you'll just read with me the text as you can, and I'll share the aphorism. We're on number 11, aphorism number 11, and so the aphorism is, memory is when perceived objects are not forgotten, but they come back to our consciousness. That is memory. Memory is a kind of secondary thought wave. A wave of direct perception causes a smaller ripple or series of ripples. The thought wave of sleep also causes smaller ripples, which we call dreams. Dreaming is remembering in your sleep. Many people have very lucid dreams, and then other people have very prophetic dreams. Is it possible that they're remembering something that they've seen in the spirit realm? I would say very possible. So it's very important. Once again, you notice that every bit of this stuff, man, everywhere you go, no matter where it is, it's all going to be tied to your mind. Yoga is about your mind. And I don't know if any of you out there haven't done yoga, but I promise you it will make your mind have to work after you do yoga for an hour. You will find soreness in places that you've never felt soreness before. It's wonderful. I love it. Now that I've been doing it for a little while, it's amazing. And anyone can do it. I don't say that there aren't people out there who have physical limits, whether it's, pieces in your back that just absolutely won't let you bend that far. But no matter where you are, you can still do a form of it. So aphorism number 12, we're going to move along, and then we get into some pieces which I think will be very, very pertinent for all of us today to learn and to grow and to get a new mindset. When you begin to program your mind, you have to put new paradigms. You have paradigm shifts, which are of change and direction. And as you gain these paradigm shifts, you also gain understanding, because now you look at a situation, a problem, a thing in your life, you look at that differently than you did. Nothing changed except your perception. The people that have been on this with me are noticing a change in their life, and yet they go, well, nothing's really changed. It's the same people in my life doing the same things, but there's something different. And that's because they're beginning or having a paradigm shift. And we need to have consistent paradigm shifts. We need to change our perspective about how we look at things. And so they are controlled by means of practice and non-attachment. And this non-attachment thing is a whole other series of pieces. We are way too invested in a whole lot of stuff that we need to not be invested in. And so I'm just going to kind of leave that at its own. We are so taught to be reactionary, and quite honestly, I have a desire to learn how not to react to everything. We were blessed with a little piece here, and oftentimes when you hear people say things, they will, by virtue of where you're at, you will have a reaction, a gut reaction, they call it. Your hair stands up on the back of your neck, or anger rises up, or all of those things. And I'm not saying I've conquered those things, but I have had a little bit of success in recognizing that when somebody says something, it's nothing but a thought that they have. Just because they thought that doesn't mean anything to me. It's not true. It's just a thought that came to their mind. I have all kinds of thoughts, If I was a millionaire, I would do such and such. That's nothing but a thought. It's not reality. I'm not a millionaire, and I can't go flying around the country with Epstein and Donald Trump together. But the truth of the matter is you can have that thought, but it's not reality. And so we really do think we place a lot of value on our thoughts as being reality, and they're not. They're just an illusion that your mind concocted. And you can learn how to control that. You can learn how to take captive those thoughts. Just so you know, that's also in the Bible. So they are controlled by means of practice and non-attachment. We have to learn first off how to practice this art, and then we also have to learn how to unattach ourselves. That's why you see yogis that if you ever watch a yogi, he's not really bothered that much. Well, let me give you a real world picture for yourself. Yeshua, in front of our faces, in the Bible, was practicing non-attachment when Pilate asked him why he wasn't reacting. When the Pharisees had him in the court before they took him to Pilate, and they sprayed all these horrible things on him, and he looks at him and he goes, "As you said." See, what he was really saying is, well, that's nothing but a thought. Mark that phrase in your mind. I guarantee you, if you start applying that, you'll see that applies to almost everything that's coming into you. We have to learn how to filter the information that comes into us. And just because somebody else has a thought and spews it on us doesn't mean we have to accept it. And non-attachment is learning how to separate yourself from that. And when you do that, your life almost instantaneously will become at the level that you are capable of doing that. And so obviously it's a journey, and it'll take us a while to learn how to do this, but eventually we should be able to come to a place to where all the things, when we cut the television on and they go through all this horrible scenario, you go, well, that's a thought, big deal. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Big deal about what the Bible says about prophecy and the angels and the bowls and the big deal. It's just a thought. If it happens, it happens. Is there anything you can do to change it? If all of the Bible, as it's been told by Christianity, is true and it all comes to pass like that, is there anything you can do to change that? So it's just a thought. It's not reality. It's not manifesting in front of you. There's no. So, but we have to learn how to control. And to do that, we have to practice control. So on the one side, we have to let go of control because we're trying to control the wrong thing. You're trying to control all the parameters, and you want to be let free to do whatever you want. And that's going to be one of the big problems with some of this for some people, because some people think that all of this teaching, what it says is I now, whatever I say is right. And it's not, except to you. It's your reality. Just because it's your reality doesn't mean it's mine. And vice versa. So you have to practice those. You have to practice dislocating yourself. You have to practice stepping back when you see something and not letting it. And some of us have a lot further to go than some people are already a little bit more adept at that than others of us. Just depending on how you were programmed. I was around very reactionary people. Something happens, there's a reaction, and usually a pretty drastic reaction, and usually it's pretty stiff and pretty staunch and pretty quick and pretty rough, and so of course, because that was my programming for the first 7 years of my life, that's how I've reacted my whole life. Instead of going, so I don't care. I don't care if you hate me, big deal. Who cares? Doesn't mean anything. I'm not attached to your words. And so that might seem kind of strange, and it might seem like you're aloof. I've heard a lot of people on the internet say, oh, well, all you're doing is you're preaching that we should be emotionless. I'm not preaching that at all. I think to lose our emotions would be the most horrible aspect of a human life, would be to have no emotion. So I understand part of why we come to planet Earth is to learn how to have emotions. Because those beings in other places don't have they're unattached to everything. So it's actually a gift. It's an opportunity, a blessing for us to learn what it means to have emotion. I'm not speaking for not having them. I'm speaking for learning how to control them. And so practice is the repeated effort to follow the disciplines which give permanent control of the thought waves of your mind. You have to learn how to control that. we're very weak-minded. I don't mean that as an offense to anybody, because I'm speaking of all of us collectively, because we haven't been taught how to discipline our minds. So we take whatever we deem to be reality, and we just let our minds go with it. Imagination is wonderful, but imagination that is let run wild will destroy your life. So practice becomes firmly grounded when it has been cultivated for a long time, uninterrupted with earnest devotion. So you have to want to do this. You have to hear these words and they resonate inside of your very core being. You go, what this guy is saying is true, and I know it. And because I know that's true, then I must do this discipline. And if you don't hear that, guess what? You won't do it. So it won't benefit you, and you will be proven that you were right. You didn't believe it. One of the, I've learned, I've gotten a new epiphany, I guess, or revelation about faith. And I heard this and it shocked me. I kind of wanted to have a reaction, and then I went back in my mind and I went back to the way that Yeshua behaved. And the statement is this, and it goes with all the teaching I did with you guys, trying to show you prayer and how Yeshua dealt with that. True faith isn't about what you believe. True faith is about what you manifest. So the manifestation trumps what you say. Okay? If you say, I believe this, and you don't manifest that, then the truth is, my friend, you are delusional, and you don't believe what you said you believe, what you think that you do believe. And so, once again, many of these things, what Source is doing is taking away the option from those who will illumine. He's taking away the option for all the excuses that you've used your whole life to be all of the things that you were never meant to be. They're all excuses. You learned them and you refuse to let them go. And he's taking away that option. And when the split of the earth and the new earth happens, which is potentially could be in the next 20 years, the things that are going on, those people who refuse to let go of the excuses, and even in a couple of situations I've heard channelers who were channeling either Metatron or Source, and both times the statement was made, those are nothing but excuses, and you refuse to let them go. So here's what it is. We have a toolbox full of excuses. We have nothing else that's beneficial to our life in there, but we have a package full of excuses. And all we do is use those same excuses for everything. Well, it's not my fault. I'm too tired. I don't want to do it. Yada, 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 yada. And they're nothing but excuses, and Source does not accept your words. And so what you do then is you call that destruction on yourself. You are prophesying your reality. Every word, every minute of every day. You are prophesying your reality. And so we have to begin then to put the excuses aside, and we have to be circumspect according to the Bible, not as fools redeeming the time, because there is much evil in this earth. And so I don't think there's more appropriate time for that verse to come into play in our life. If you wanted to define evil as being the opposite of Source, light, love, well then would not using excuses be evil? They're the opposite of Source, light, love. Source, light, love is about doing. Source, light, love is about manifesting. That's why there's so many teachings out there about how to manifest. Why? Because that's Source, light, love. There's no excuses in Source, light, love. He doesn't accept them. He will not accept you or your excuses if you continue to stay on that vein. Doesn't mean he doesn't love you. It just means you will never manifest in your life. You will just continue to beat your head against the same wall while you use your excuses. And I'm desirous to burn my excuses and start learning how to function rationally with Source. So to do that, we have to practice. And it is the repeated effort. Did y'all see not repeated ease? Repeated effort. Repeated work You have to do the work. If you don't want to do the work, you'll never experience anything that's coming, and you will probably live in low density when the world splits, and you will never know what true illumination means. I don't care how much you can convince yourself otherwise. It's not going to happen. So practice is a repeated effort to follow disciplines, which is another word we hate about as much as effort. No effort and no discipline. That's what society has programmed you to look for. If it's easy, it's good. And in fact, I have to be honest with you, in Source's world, if it's easy, it's probably the worst thing for you. And so practice is the repeated effort to follow the disciplines which give permanent control of the thoughts of your mind. So can we have then a not permanent and have a temporary change in our minds? Absolutely. There'll be many people that do it that do not persevere. They'll go along, their life will get better, they'll do a little bit, they'll meditate one day, and all of a sudden something is good, and they'll meditate a second day, and by the 10th day they've already quit that. And so what happens is then without the repetitive and consistent practice of discipline, we end up inevitably reverting right back to where we were. And that's a travesty. So practice becomes firmly grounded when it has been cultivated for a long time, uninterrupted, with earnest devotion. In other words, I'm not just doing this because I'm trying to get something. I'm doing this because I recognize the blessing and the value to me. My life is better because I draw closer to Source. So non-attachment is self-mastery. So this concept of non-attachment, this concept of stopping ourselves. I'm trying to do it, and some days I have better luck than others. Anybody besides me ever struggle with that? Some days you do real good, and the next day you then screw up royally. Yeah, I get that a lot, man. I hate it. That makes me mad. You know, now I'm angry at myself because after the fact I recognize, I just did exactly what I've been wanting not to do. And that's okay. You have to love yourself, forgive yourself, and start tomorrow. Tomorrow is another new day. You get a new opportunity. Today you may not do as good. Tomorrow you'll do good, and you'll do good, and then you'll let your guard down, and the next day you then have another bad day. Eventually you'll quit letting your guard down if you continue to practice. As Dr. Lipton said, practice even if you don't believe it. Eventually one day you'll wake up and you will. So non-attachment, though, is about us mastering ourselves. The only way that I can make myself quit reacting like I've always is by controlling me. Because why? Because I'm the one that reacts that way. That's not Source. Your bad behaviors. And listen, just because you don't have external, I've met a lot of people. Let's see, Mariana uses a word, or used to use a word a lot. It was, what's that word for people that, passive aggressive. Passive aggressive is just as aggressive as people who get in your face and call you out on the floor. It's just as detrimental. It's just as destructive. So you keep your mouth shut, but inside, you're still destroying yourself, friend. You haven't accomplished anything. In fact, there are many teachings that go along with the mind that one of the biggest problems in our society is that people learn to keep their mouth shut and they hide their emotions, and the emotions didn't go away. And I do this often because there's a lot of times I want to say a lot of things that I don't say. And that would be really good because really quickly you would find out the people that are walking on the same path as you. Non-attachment is self-mastery. It is freedom from desire for what is seen or heard. Can you see how that is? We non-attach. I drive by a new car and I go, well, that's really nice. Somebody's getting a new car, but I don't really want one. Yeah, I'm glad you got the payments. I don't want them either. Right? I got some heads bobbing. If that's what you wanted, that's great, but I'm non-attached. I don't want that. So really a lot of control issues. So does it seem kind of weird to you that we're supposed to give up control to gain control? Here's a message you'll hear often in this thought process. You have to become nothing to become something. If you think you're something now, what you actually do is prove that you're nothing. Just think on those words a little bit. What did Yahusha, how did he show us to live? He lived as if he was nothing. What? I'm a servant. He had more mental power than probably all of us put together. And yet, in his eyes, he was nothing. That's why he's something. You see that principle? I say it all the time. I don't want your ego. You're nobody and you're nothing. And I'm nobody and I'm nothing. And I don't want any ego. I don't care. If I'm not as good as you, great. I'm glad that you're better than I am. I could care less. It really isn't important that you're better than I am or I'm better than you are. Because to be honest with you, anybody who says they're better than anybody is nothing but a liar and doesn't even know the truth in the first place. Because there's nothing you have that you created on your own, except for your reality. It all comes from source anyways. So, the waves of the mind can be made to flow in two opposite directions, positive or negative. Either towards the objective world, the will to desire, or towards true self-knowledge, the will to liberate. I desire to be free from these constraints that the world has taught me. Ego, competition, self-centeredness, yada, yada, yada. And you can make some really long lists about these things. And there are people who have a will to be free from that. And guess what happens? When you begin that journey, then all of a sudden the timeline changes for you. Just so that you know, all that the Bible talks about as separation is all talking about timeline. So, this tells us then that there are people who are looking for the will to desire. They probably do not recognize that. And then there are people who have a will to liberation. I want to be free. I want to know the truth, and the truth sets me free. So the only way I can know true freedom is to know what the truth is. And then when I know the truth, I also know how to behave myself. And that has to come from inside your will. Therefore, both practice and non-attachment are necessary. Indeed, it is useless and even dangerous to attempt one without the other. So there is, number one, no way that we're not going to be able, that we're going to not need to practice non-attachment. So it's really not an option. A lot of the stuff I'm seeing at non-attachment is like it's like a side thing. It's like the thing, and it's not the thing. It's a part of the thing. We have to learn how to disassociate. Some say it in words as you have to learn how to step back and be an observer. If you are observing, you are not what? If you go to a football game, do you see the football game? But are you participating in the football game? No, you're simply observing it. You have no power to change anything. You have no will to change anything. That is to say, you're not going to run down there on the field and, right? And so that principle, that metaphoric picture for you is exactly what we must learn how to become viewers of the world around us. And so then what happens when we begin to view things, we begin to then recognize what things are more clearly. So we don't need just one, we need both. If we try to practice spiritual disciplines without attempting to control the thought waves of desire, our minds will become violently agitated and perhaps permanently unbalanced. And I'm not real sure that there's not a lot of us that are in that state. Not by will, but just simply by circumstance of how we were raised, the society in which we live in. All of those things affect us because we haven't been taught that we need to control our mind. It's not, that's the highest teaching that they could teach in public school. So, but I want you to see when you come into that situation, and you attempt to practice this spiritual discipline without attempting to control your mind, look at what it does to you. You become violently agitated. Well, I've been this person. I don't know that I'm not still this person. And it's because I haven't had enough time to practice disciplining my mind. So when I see people do things wrong, it makes me angry. Any of you have anger issues besides me? Supposedly mine come out of the just so you guys know, I did a past life regression on Thursday, and in my past life regression, I was a warlock, and the Catholic Church killed me. They burnt me at a stake, and there's two pieces. One involved my mother turning me into the Catholic Church, and the other involved my best friend, who I love, turning me into the Catholic Church. And so however all of that pans out, but it certainly answered for me a lot of the questions of why, now that I see what Christianity is, why it affects me so drastically. That's pretty powerful. So the thought waves of desire, our minds will become violently agitated and perhaps permanently unbalanced. So please hear me, dear one. These things are not light things. I mean, this is like the deepest well you're ever going to get into in your life, which is why it's not mainstream, because mainstream feeds you a shallow stream that you get the bottom of your feet wet, but not your ankles. And now you get dumped off in a 200-foot deep well that you can't swim out of if you want to. You then have to learn how to function in the well, not escape it. See, that goes back to the whole thing of excuses. Excuses are escapism. I want to escape the reality that I caused this. That's why so many people always, the first reaction when something happens, they say, well, it wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault. Why did you feel that you needed to justify yourself if you knew it wasn't your fault? Didn't all you need was just to know that it's not your fault and that whatever they're saying is a thought? You see, it's all of those principles tying in. He's really blessing you guys. This is huge. So, if we try to practice spiritual discipline without attempting to control our thoughts of our minds, our minds will become violently agitated. And that explains a lot that I see in society. Why it is because we are unbalanced. Is it fixable? Well, they say it's permanent, but I think it's only permanent if you choose not to do the work that it takes to undo it. If we attempt nothing more than a rigid negative control of the waves of desire without raising our waves of love, compassion, and devotion to oppose them, then the result may be even more tragic. So if the first one was bad, the second one's even worse. So in other words, you're not going to ever become the God person Christianity told you should be. You just become an angry person who either lashes out and becomes a fanatic, or you're an angry person who does no benefit for the rest of society. The purpose we're here is for mankind. We're supposed to love the world because he loves the world. And so if we attempt nothing more than a rigid negative control of the waves of desire without raising waves of love, compassion, and devotion to oppose them, then the result may be even more tragic. This is why certain strict Puritans suddenly and mysteriously commit suicide. Have you noticed in our society that suicide is at an all-time high? Have you wondered why children who are 5 years old, I think the one I heard recently, the earliest I've ever heard, was a 5-year-old kid. And there was no worth in life anymore. I'm dead. I want to die. I don't even want to be here anymore. And the problem that we don't understand yet again, thank you very much, Christianity, is what we don't understand about suicide is that's a karma issue, and all that means is that you turn right around and you come back in to the world again in another body, and you still go through the cycle. You're not going to get out of the cycle with karma. You have to take care of your karma. And all of these things I'm sharing with you are about your karma, clearing your karma. Both of past lives and all the times you didn't, and the life you live in. So that you don't have to come back down here. Why? Because you learned the lessons you needed to learn. Now you can go on with the rest of eternity. And that may be a bit deep for you, but it is the truth, nonetheless. So if we attempt nothing more than a rigid negative control, friends, everything I taught and everything that we looked at in the Bible, both Christian New Testament as well as the Torah, is that. This is why certain strict Puritans suddenly and mysteriously commit suicide. They make a cold, stern effort to be good. I believe there's a lot of people who've fallen down, they go away, they never learned, they're never prosperous. They weren't prosperous spiritually while they were there. Why? Because in their heart, in their mind, they could not discipline themselves, so they never did the things, so they always went home feeling horrible. I've known a lot of people who go to church and hear the preacher, and they leave worse than they came. Did I tell you that we're creating our reality every day? So, we were told that if we would will to be good, we somehow would be good. And if you didn't do good, guess what? You're a sinner and you're going to hell. Now, I've had quite a few people in the last couple of months tell me how they lived their whole life. Whole life. I'm talking about when you got 50, 60 years behind you that you've lived, knowing if that was true, you were going to go to hell and you were never going to be good enough to get out of hell. Friend, that's huge. And that's exactly what Christianity offers you. Because can I be really honest with y'all? Most of you who've been with me already know this, but you can preach the Torah till you die, and you ain't ever going to keep it. Wow. So, they make a cold, stern effort to be good, that is, not to think bad thoughts. And when they fail, as all human beings sometimes must, they cannot face the humiliation which is really nothing more than hurt pride. Can I tell you, that's a definition of narcissism right there. They can never be wrong. And what motivates them to never be wrong is pride. You want to know what narcissism is? It is an overblown, exaggerated form of pride. That's all it is. Everything that's destructive in your life will inevitably, if you rightly apply the truth in the Word, everything in your life that is causing negativity in your life comes out of pride, not humility. Humility makes you okay with things even when they're not okay. So, they cannot face this humiliation, which is really nothing more than hurt pride, and the emptiness inside themselves. Once again, narcissists, they're very empty people. In the Taoist scriptures, we read, and just so you know, guys, there's lots of scriptures before this is all over with we're going to look at. We're going to look at the Vedic scriptures, which are the scriptures that predate anything that has to do with the Christianity and the Bible by several thousand years. Guess what? You'll find a lot. If we go through the Vedic scriptures together, you will find a whole lot of the Bible in them Vedic scriptures. It's not new news. They knew exactly what the Vedic scriptures said. And the emptiness inside themselves. In the Taoist scriptures we read, heaven arms with compassion those whom it would not see to destroy. And so really, if you stop for a second, that kind of gives you a version that there can be an empowering. And this could then go back to the thought process, well, The ones that Source intends, the ones that Source knows, he empowers them. That's a lot of why Yeshua said words. And so a lot of the things that people are trying to tell people don't exist, there is still accountability. There is still punishment to come with life. Okay? It's called karma. And you're building it every day. Every thought, every word, every action is karma, whether good or bad. You get to determine the good or bad, but it's still functioning no matter. Karma always functions. And so, heaven arms with compassion those whom it would not see destroyed. That's really an amazing, profound. So look at yourself and ask yourself, and I don't mean ask yourself according to the self that's here. Look at yourself and ask your higher self. That's the true spirit person that you are. And that higher self is supposed to be the guide for us, but we're so disconnected from our higher self, we no longer have a guide. So now we're guided by what? Our minds. That's why it's so important that we take back control of our minds. Our minds are what are destroying us, friends. Not your higher self. Your higher self is pure. It's light. It's love. That's why I had to ask myself, well, who am I really? Who am I really? And I started on the list, well, you're hard, you're pragmatic, you're dogmatic, you're intense, and I went through the whole list, and all those things then depressed me because I knew they were true. And so I said, no, I want to know who I truly am. And I then began to realize that I am love, and I am kindness, and I am patience. And if I keep putting that picture in front of my mind, eventually that'll be the picture my mind has, not the other picture. That's how you reprogram your mind. Nobody can do it for you. That is a journey that you and you alone, you either will or you won't. That's the end of the discussion. Heaven arms with compassion those whom it does not seek to destroy. Here's a question for us. Could we not take that then principle and immediately turn around and let me take you back to him again? Do you know one of the main traits about Yeshua was? His compassion. He was the perfect example of all of this stuff, guys. I absolutely am learning to believe that without a question. He was the perfect example. I did a study. Many of you, because you weren't pastors, you never had to study. You don't even know what most of the Bible even says, even in the wrong form. But I did a study because I noticed the thing about Yeshua. There were lots of places when I would study, because I used to become inflamed and my aura would come out and people could see the light coming out of me. And that's happened a lot of times. And it would be usually because of the scriptures. But I noticed about Yeshua that it was constantly said of him, and he was moved with compassion, and he healed him. And he was moved with compassion, and he healed him. And so I pondered that way back there 25 plus years ago, that the vehicle that motivated him to release the power that was inside of himself, and it is a power that flows out of you. I've touched people and felt that flow go out of me many times. And the power that released that flow of energy, chi, is one, it's energy, the energy that courses through our chakras and runs on the meridian lines inside of your body is chi. Chi is also the supernatural force that causes healing. So when it says he felt his virtue, he's talking about he felt his energy, he felt his chi leave his body. And the problem is there's good chi and good and bad chi. And I've had people touch me who had bad chi, and you can feel it. I had a guy that was going to speak in tongues over me, and it was a demon talking out of him. It certainly wasn't from God. And I had to disassociate. I had to separate myself. I stood there so that I didn't shame him in front of everybody, but I constantly, the whole time that was going on, I prayed that the Father would protect me from what was coming out of this person's mouth right in my own church sanctuary. So let's ponder this. The spiritual disciplines which we are to practice will be described as we go along. They are known as the 8 limbs of yoga. Perseverance is very important. That's why we don't have an option, friend. We got to keep going. Please don't hurt yourself by getting caught up in back and forth. You know, you remember the saying of the cosmic apostle Paul? And he said that those people would be blown with every wind of doctrine. Well, that doesn't mean that you never learn anything and your doctrine doesn't change. It means that you don't know what the true doctrine is, and so maybe you hear it and then you go somewhere else. There's lots of people who are going to hear this message and turn around and go back to Christianity. I can't imagine it, but I also have to pay attention and protect myself that I don't let my mind lead me back over there. Because you know as well as I do, when your mama, granny, brother, sister comes over and they start preaching to you about how you're going to go to hell and that I'm a liar, you know as well as I do, your mind's going to have to deal with that. And there will be people who are not disciplined and they don't have control of their mind, and they see it as that's a reaction, and what happens immediately, what comes? Their frequency drops, their fear rises, and they have once again been ensnared in the trap, which is also the thing Paul was talking about. So the disconnection, just so you know, is really almost more of a protector for you. It is a discipline that we really need in a large way, because we are inundated by so many negative forces all around us. So in this connection, no temporary failure, however disgraceful or humiliating, should ever be used as an excuse. You see the excuse thing there? For an excuse for giving up the struggle. So we go, well, I'm ashamed of myself. They all laughed at me. And what do we immediately do? We then try to bend so that all these people that laughed at us don't laugh at us anymore, instead of just being honest. That's the emotional part that we hide. We try to act like we're super giants and we don't have any emotions. I can't tell you how many families I've counseled where the mother or father, if a child started crying, immediately the parent immediately tried to shut them up because they didn't want to be ashamed because their kids seemed to be weak. And I used to tell parents all the time, man, let the kid cry. Get mad in front of your kids. Don't hide it from them. They need to see that people's actions affect things. How can they relate to the world if they don't know how the world relates? We have a lot of society, there's a name for them, they have a whole class of medical thing that has to do with people who are societally not acceptable. In other words, you're a failure and you can't function in society. That's a medical term that they have for that. So, no temporary failure. It's not permanent. No temporary failure, however disgraceful or humiliating, should ever be used as an excuse for you giving up the struggle. There will be people that do, but the recommendation and the encouragement to us is that we don't let that happen. If we are learning to ski, we are not ashamed when we fall down or find ourselves lying in some ridiculous entangled position. We pick ourselves up and we start again. Never mind if people laugh or sneer at you. Never mind the people who come, and if they ask you and you begin to share with you, the ones that laugh at you or even speak ill toward you. Just because they did that, you cannot let them. You look at them and you tell them, well, that's a thought. You know, if I met a Christian tomorrow and they begin to tell me how the Bible went, I have knowledge, I have power. Well, you know, I realize that is a thought, but that ain't my thought. And you go on. Do you see how that empowers you? We've spent our whole lives giving up our power to other people, and we don't have to. So never mind if people laugh or sneer at you, unless, now, so here's the unless for everybody, unless you're a hypocrite. And then none of the rest of that applies to you any longer. Unless you are a hypocrite, we will not care what impression we make upon onlookers. No failure is ever really a failure unless we stop trying altogether. That's the biggest failure of all. Indeed, it may be a blessing in disguise and a much needed lesson. And I hate to say it, but I've encountered a lot of these, and I slowly, am I starting to find pleasure and joy in some of those smaller ones. I'm not yet ascended to the larger ones make me happy. Who knows? If I keep on, maybe there'll be a time when things that used to would have made me blow a gasket have no effect on me. Okay, I'm gone. Doesn't matter what you say. Now, is that the same as not loving and not caring? No, it's not. Hopefully, most of our relationships as time goes on are going to be with people who are walking the same vein. And so it's easy how it used to be in America with politics. A Democrat and a Republican could sit at a table in a cafe and drink a cup of coffee together and have a conversation about politics. And I think you guys might have noticed that there's somewhat of a large chasm in the United States. Do you see how it's all spiritual? It's not just listen, MAGA is great and all of that stuff. But that's not the answer. Until we begin to make each other great again, we'll never make this country anything. And that's what's happening. Because we're focusing on the wrong things. We're focusing on pumping oil and gas out of Mother Earth and causing her to be destroyed instead of using the amazing minds that we have. And I can't understand why we haven't had 100 years ago, even when Nikola Tesla was alive. He found out how to generate free electricity, and here we are making oil people billions of dollars pumping oil out of Mother Earth when we could have had a source that was totally free for everybody. I know I sound like a Democrat. But it's true. We've missed the point. Totally. Why isn't the point that our motivation isn't about how much we can take from everybody, but how much we can give to everybody? Because you can believe me, whether you're a pharmaceutical, whether you're an oil person, whether you're a contractor, your purpose for being there is to take whatever you can get. Don't play silly games. Nobody goes into business for free. So, is it important then if people laugh at us because we have perceived by their standards, we have perceived failures? If you're beginning the road of enlightenment and you're learning how to detach, you actually will grow exactly 180 of those people, and you will begin to find pleasure in your failures. Not because you wanted to fail. I hate to fail. But because you recognize that you now know where you're weak at. You have no hope of fixing something. You have no hope. I've had people go to me, well, why do I need to fix myself? I'm fine just like I am. I went, yep, you sure are. I'm done. I got nothing else to say to you. Because it doesn't matter what you're going to say. If somebody can't see them, they'll never see it. And no matter how you can preach, believe me, I know. It ain't going to make people change until you see it. Until you out there, America, see that you need to change your heart and mind, there will never be any change in this country. No attachment is the exercise of discrimination. So then, get that. Non-attachment is the exercise in discriminating. Oh, well, we're not talking about racial discrimination. We gradually gain control of the painful or impure thought waves by asking ourselves, why do I really desire that object? Why do I really want that? Take a movie star, take a musician. Why do they really want to be up there? Some of them want to be up there because they love the art that they do. I watch Tom Selleck, and it doesn't matter what venue Tom Selleck is in, he's always in. I watch Quigley Down Under, my most favorite movie, and he is Quigley Down Under, friends. And you can turn on to a modern Blue Bloods, and you see the same guy. Because that's who he is. He's real. As far as a human can be. On the other side, there's a whole lot of actors that I've seen that are nothing but fake. And they're only there, why? Because they want accolades, they want prominence, same way with music. Why do you want to stand up on that stage and play your instrument in front of everybody? Why do you want to do that? Oh, well, I want to be a god. I want to be a rock star. I want to be rich. Wrong. How many of those musicians have you, if you haven't paid attention, you should. How many musicians who make it big who end up imploding very shortly after, or even a long term, but they live a horrible life? Why do you need everybody to look at you so bad? What is your purpose? Is your purpose to be a blessing, or is your purpose because you want your ego fed? And there's only one of two choices there. You're either doing it for the good of mankind, or you're doing it because of your ego. So it is something that we can exercise. Why do I really desire this object? What permanent advantage should I gain by possessing it? So if I get up here, what permanent thing am I going to put into my thing? Have you ever stopped and pondered? Let's just take it for granted. You go back, Jim Morrison, perfect example. Jim Morrison went through all of that crap, went through all of the struggles that go on in the music business. He wanted up there, he got up there, and what happens? He dies. Friends, the universe is talking to you. Why are you doing what you're doing? And if you don't even know, then I can pretty much guess you're probably not doing it for the right purposes. It's an ego thing. So why do I desire that object? What permanent advantage should I gain by possessing it? What good is it going to do if I get this? How many times, maybe some of you have said this, and it doesn't matter whether it's down here for pennies or whether it's up here for billions of dollars. Makes no difference. You could ask all of these questions to Elon Musk. Exactly. Why are you doing this, Elon? So it doesn't matter. Money doesn't matter. It's not about that. So the answers to these questions are always unsettling. What permanent advantage can I gain by possessing it? In what way would its possession help me towards greater knowledge and freedom? How is this thing going to help me? Do you see how that's a different perspective than we're brought up with? Where you brought up with, usually when people in our society ask the question, well, how will this benefit me? It's all about the dollar signs. Why do doctors go to work to be doctors? Do they go to work to be a doctor because they love people and they really want to help these hurting people? Or did they go into business for money? Very relevant to every human on the face of this earth. So what permanent advantage will I gain? Well, my permanent advantage that I will gain by being a doctor is that I get to show love and compassion, and people who are hurting, I can in some way maybe help that. Is that a positive thing? Would that not be something on your resume in the heavenlies you would like, that your heart was so molded towards the benefit of humans that you got up and went to work every day after you spent $300,000 to get a medical license, and you go there every day with simplicity and humility in your heart about how you can love and how you can help people? Because I guarantee you, if you look for that today, you probably won't find two doctors in your city, if you live in a big city, who are actually there for the right purpose. And so even us guys who are nobodies still have the same questions to ask ourselves. Why am I doing this? The answers to these questions are always disconcerting. They show us that the desired object is not only useless as a means to liberation, but potentially harmful as a means to ignorance and bondage, and further, that our desire is not really desire for the object in itself at all, but only a desire to desire something, a mere restlessness in our mind. That was a mouthful, I know, but you got the video. It would not hurt you to go back over again. What is he saying in a nutshell? He's telling us that it's ego. You just sat around, you didn't have anything else to do in your mind, and so you had a what? You had a thought come. Oh, that thought must be my calling from God. So our desire is not really desire for the object in itself at all, but only a desire to desire something. A mere restlessness in our mind. What an amazing perception, friends. That your mind just didn't, you got bored, you didn't have anything else to do, so you let what? You let a thought come in your mind instead of detaching yourself from it and recognizing, oh, well, that's just a thought, it's real good. Now, are there inspired thoughts that Creator gives us? Absolutely. Will He confirm that in your life? Absolutely. No questions, those are true statements. Source does have purposes and plans. We all have a purpose and a plan for being on this earth. There was something, I can give you half of the answer to that for every human being. It was to learn how to love and help other people. And if you don't do that, you failed. I don't care whatever you are else. Source will bless whatever else is part of that equation. Whatever it is that your part in fulfilling that equation is. But you got to love and want to help and bless people. Wow. It is fairly easy to reason all of this out in a calm moment, but our non-attachment is put to the test when the mind is suddenly swept by a huge wave of anger, lust, or greed. Anger, lust, or greed, the root of all evil, you could say at one level. It's either you're functioning out of anger, you're functioning out of lust. Well, I want a new car, I want a new woman, I want a new this, I want a new that. It's all lust. It doesn't matter what it is. We only equate the word lust with sex. But I know lots of people who sin a whole lot more by lusting after things than they do a woman. Or greed, which is money. Then it is only by a determined effort of will that we can remember what our reason already knows. That this wave and the sense object which raised it and the ego sense which identifies the experience with itself are all alike transient and superficial. They are not the underlying reality. So can I tell you, when you're in that state, you are living in a hologram that your mind concocted. So, non-attachment may come very slowly, and it does, at least for me, has been my experience. I haven't had a lot of experience with it. I'm just learning, but I am trying, and it seems like that when I commit that I am going to learn how to do this discipline, that immediately I get plenty of practice. Unfortunately, right now, I'm probably not winning more than I'm not winning, but that'll change. And so, non-attachment will come very slowly, but even in its earliest stages are rewarded by a new sense of freedom and peace. And I have to say, from my perspective, when I haven't been able to accomplish that, it feels really, really horrible. When I let the things that controlled me in the past, when I let anger or something come in and control me, I feel really horrible when I fail. I feel wonderful when I'm successful. When I go, okay. If that's reality, if that's your reality, that's reality. I'm okay with it. Let's go on. I got nothing else to say. And when I don't do that, and I do all the things that I did, maybe y'all can recognize those things I'm talking about. And when I do those things, I feel even worse. Used to, I could justify myself because of it. or I deserve to be mad. And now I don't even have that to hang on to anymore. So, it should never be thought of as an austerity, a kind of self-torture, something grim and painful. It's not. It's actually something that's amazingly wonderful and freeing to you when you can go, got nothing on me. I put my rubber gloves on, see? Don't stick like glue no more. It just slides right off. So the practice of non-attachment gives value and significance to even the most ordinary incidences of the dullest day. It eliminates boredom from our lives, and as we progress in pain and gain increasing self-mastery, we will see that we are renouncing nothing but that we really want, that we really want, need, or want. We are only freeing ourselves from imaginary needs and desires. So it doesn't take away with your innate pure, if you can say it like that. It doesn't have the pure desire. If you're a musician and you want to bless people, you're the one that needs to know that. And you could be one or the other. There's been many of both that have been on, in that all areas of that life. Just because somebody's up there and somebody is successful at what they do doesn't mean they're a bad person. But not everybody that's up there is a good person. That's what we got to see. Who am I? Who am I? Why am I doing what I'm doing? And how is it going to bless me permanently? And so, as we progress and gain increasing self-mastery, we will see that we are renouncing nothing that we really need or want. We want a lot of things that we don't need. And sometimes we need things that we really don't want. You ever done that? Bought something, It's like the mamas at Christmas go buy the kids a toy. The kids throw the toy outside and they play with the box for 2 weeks. Kid neither needed it or wanted it. It was just like, okay, well, this is here. I'll play with the box. It's more interesting than that thing is. But do you see it the simplest form? Because that's when those children are being formed into their belief system. Mama gave me this for Christmas, and she gave me the thing inside the box, but she gave it to me in the box, and because I'm a different individual and I don't know right from wrong, I chose the box and not the thing. Kind of a picture that they're, in many ways, a whole lot more pure than we are. Is it surprising Yahusha said, "Come unto me as little children"? Sometimes not knowing because what we know is wrong. If what we know is wrong, we're always going to get the wrong results. That's why we have to come as a little child. Well, I don't know anything, Source. I tell him that all the time. I don't know anything. I don't know how any of this is going to work past today. I don't have a clue. The things you've said to me, and if you do those things, it's going to have to have been you, because it ain't got nothing to do with me. So you're really not letting anything go that you needed. For we are only freeing ourselves from imaginary needs and desires, and in this spirit a soul grows in greatness until it can accept life's worst disasters calm and unmoved. Think about that. Would that not be heaven, brother? If nothing ever got a chance to get a hold of us and cause all those horrible, nasty emotions that we allow, can I be honest with you? That should be a picture to us. I know it's not a perfect picture because I know it's what we all see that picture. But it is the picture that we need. We need to be able to see. We need to see these things that we spent most of our life trying not to see. That's why they say words like, "Which face do you have on now?" What a horrible slam that I'm not even, and here's the thing. That statement by virtue verifies that you don't even know who you are. Because if you knew who you are, you would be a humble person. Your God self, your supernatural little orb of light that lives inside of you, that you are, that you will be again. Is that greedy and unkind and rude and hateful? Is that light force your higher self? See, what we're really supposed to be, what we're looking for in this is to find out and connect our minds with who we are, who we really are. Who are you really? And it's sometimes difficult for people to answer that because they can't separate their self, flesh, mind, from spirit. And so if you look at flesh, mind as one and spirit as one, then all you're going to see is flesh and mind because you can't see the spirit. You can only know the spirit and feel the spirit. Namaste. So listen to what Yahusha says. Funny that they use this in yoga aphorisms, and have you noticed how much Bible they've quoted? But here we have Jesus speaking. Oh, just in case you didn't know that, he was a Buddhist monk in Kashmir, India, for 50 years after the supposed death on the crucified cross. And he traveled the world with his extremely rich uncle merchant, Joseph of Arimathea, and he learned in the greatest schools all over the earth. That's the true Yahusha, not the other one. Listen to what he says. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Meaning that the ordinary, undiscriminating life of sense attachment is really much more painful, much harder to bear than the disciplines which will set you free. It's actually, we brutalize ourselves, friends. That's why when you hear me say that we're creating our own picture. And so we do these things and we think they're the right things to do, and yet they're the things that are killing us. Wow. Anybody ever tell you this before? Nobody ever told me this. I never heard this, and I never saw it in anybody's life. I saw lots of other things that helped me to form into who I am, but I didn't see this. So it's harder to bear unenlightenment than it is to bear enlightenment. We find this saying difficult to understand because we have been trained to think of Christ's earthly life as a tragic, a glorious, inspiring tragedy, certainly. But ending nevertheless upon the cross, we should rather ask ourselves which would be easier, to hang on that cross with the enlightenment and non-attachment of a Christ, or to suffer there in the ignorance and agony and bondage of a poor thief. And the cross may come to us anyways, whether we're ready or able to accept it or not. So do you see how that works? Wow. Well, I don't know about you. My mind's full. I hope you guys aren't taking this lightly. There's so much love and mercy in these things in which are in front of us, and many people, maybe you're not, so please, I'm not judging anybody. You have to judge yourself. That's why the scripture tells us, judge yourself. If you judge yourself, you wouldn't have to worry about it. Do you know that in itself, it just hit me from source, I believe. Did you know that judgment statement is actually about what we're actually looking at? If you would judge yourself rightly, we use the term righteously, and that is true, but in our modern language, I think rightly is more appropriate. If I would judge myself in the right way, then would it matter to me? Isn't that in itself a statement of separation? I'm releasing myself from that. If I would just judge myself, then if you come and tell me I'm not that, that's a thought. I looked at myself, and I was honest with myself, and I looked at higher self, and higher self was honest with me and said, Rob, you need to work on this, this, and this. Yes, sir, I believe that's true. And I did that. And you can tell me your judgment about me, but that doesn't change anything. You don't have my conversations with Source. And if Source had a problem with me, I can tell you I've found out from Source that Source has ways of showing me where I have no questions what he's trying to say. Sometimes that takes a little while and a whole bunch of pain, but I guarantee you he's always right. So it is true, Daddy's always right. See? Even television had it. Father knows best. Just accept it. So, guys, be blessed. I know you know that, certainly know I'm not for everybody. But it seems like Source has been guiding me and leading me recently to understand the revelation that we are not in, quote unquote, maybe time as usual. And I think some of you probably sense that that's true. There is a sense all over this earth, and it's just starting to become even a little bit clearer. But this that I'm teaching you, this love that I'm teaching you, is being taught by people just like me all over this earth. And so here's the question. If Source is increasing this all over the earth, maybe we're in a different time than what they were even, let's say, 50 years ago. How many of you would say that there's been huge changes in the last 20 years? Huge change, monumental changes in the last 20 years. And so it makes sense then, because once again, I've quoted him twice to go back to Daniel. Daniel said, a picture for us. I believe he took that out of Source. That word came from Source to Daniel. That at the end of time, or at the end of the age, at the end of earth as we know it, it's the end of the world as you know it. Things are speeding up. So now you may need to get some really hard lessons that before you could be a yogi and sit for 20 years in a monastery and you were in a protected place and everything was cool and chill. And you know what? Eventually you got through and you learned how to discipline, or you got tired of it and you left. Well, you guys probably are not going to do too well trying to get on an airplane, and especially without having your vaccination and your card, and flying to Tibet and convincing some Tibetan monk to let you study with him. See, we don't understand what Yeshua had to do to be a monk, because we haven't even believed that, much less studied that. But when I found out he spent 6 years in Tibet, sitting every day with his legs crossed in the lotus platform, doing yoga and meditating, this dude is real. He got it. No wonder he was so wise. And then we go, well, I don't know why that guy keeps talking about I got to meditate. You don't. But don't expect your life to change very much either. It's really, you get to choose your reality. Every word you say is always true. If you speak words of mindlessness, those words are true. You'll get exactly what you said. Or you can come from a place of mindfulness and you can speak words and create your reality. It's your choice, bro. So, I love you guys a lot. I hope that this is helping you. I've talked to some of you and it's been absolutely amazing. There is no condemnation in anything I've said. It's a choice. It's an operation of us finding out that we have a choice to what we've always had. And you didn't have this choice before, whatever reason, Source brought this in front of you. I didn't go looking for this. Source brought it to me. What made me in my mind to question the Torah, only to find out that they don't even know who wrote the dang thing? Are there some good pieces in there? Yes. Are there some amazing words in there? Yes. Are you hearing me? Have a blessed day. Have a blessed week. Be happy and you know it. Say amen. And you can find the answers to self, your higher self, your spirit self, the true light that emboldens who you are. I realize that we've been pretty dim. We was the ones Yeshua was talking about over there who put a basket over our brightness. We're dim. Whether you want to use the basket metaphor or mine of the onion, it's exactly the same thing. So make a choice to begin to tear those layers off so that you can expose that light. There's lots of people out there waiting for you to. Lots of people. It is going to take work. It's not going to be all a freebie. Yes, it's not like drinking the blood and doing cannibalism for salvation. This actually requires something from you. That doesn't. Which is why they sold it to you. So, blessings to each and every one of you. Hope that you'll take these words and you'll let them resonate in your heart over the weeks. Somebody a couple of weeks from now is going to be in the middle of a situation and it's going to hit them like a sledgehammer between the eyes, and it's going to be, hey, that's exactly what this guy was talking about. I know it's real. Absolutely know it's real. So, peace to each and every one of you.